Well, good morning, everyone. This is Patrick at Qdabra, and today we have an open door session for you. This is the first open door session we've done. And what is an open door session? This is typically a placeholder for a webinar where we answer questions from people. We don't usually have a lot prepared, but in this case today, we actually have an open door session plus alpha. And I want to welcome you all to our weekly webinar. I see some familiar names out there. Thanks for joining us today. And it won't be just me. We've got Jimmy Risch here as well. Jimmy is our lead Forms developer here. He's our lead developer, and he's the guy who's behind most of the work that has gone into FormsViewer to date. Jimmy, can you say a few words?
Yep. Hello, everybody. Just glad to be working on FormsViewer and bringing these new features to you, and I hope you get a lot of use out of it.
Great to have you here, Jimmy. And you'll be doing demos in a second, but I've got a few slides to walk through to talk about these new features. First of all, I want to explain again what FormsViewer is and talk about the timeline here for when we'll be releasing this new version. Along with the improvements, we're going to go over those in detail, and we'll even show you an example of how to leverage a couple of these new improvements in a new form. And then, of course, we've got the open door answers to your questions. So if you have questions, now is a great time to log those in the question area. And I'm going to actually do a quick poll because I'd like to understand where you're at in terms of our FormsViewer migration path, and we'll just give us a few seconds here if you could answer this question, that'd be great. If you're using FormsViewer, that's the first question, the first two bullets there, 365 or SharePoint on-prem. If you're looking at using it moving forward for your InfoPath forms, those are the second two, the third and the fourth bullet. And then if you're not sure why you're here, well, you can just answer the second one, the last one there. So it looks like we've got pretty much all of you voted, maybe 75%, and it looks like most of you are currently using FormsViewer. And there's one of you using it or evaluating for SharePoint on-prem. Great to have you here. Okay, so we're going to close that and go back to our quick introduction and explanation of what FormsViewer is. FormsViewer is a InfoPath 2016, basically we call it the future for InfoPath forms. Microsoft's Power Apps is an interesting product that Microsoft has created, but it still doesn't support repeating sections, nor is it document-centric. And one of the benefits of InfoPath forms today are those two things, that you have the ability to create rich forms. Most forms we find have a repeating section. It also gives you the ability to store everything in one document, which is critical for workflow, and it's critical for signing, for doing anything where you need an audit trail, like a copy of record. So you need a document for that. And of course, if you're signing documents, you need that as well. So we've developed this product, this tool, mainly for our many customers of InfoPath. And the key advantage of FormsViewer is that it allows you to take your forms as is, without any modification or with very minimal modification, and basically just upload them to SharePoint and turn them on in FormsViewer. So FormsViewer is an app, gets installed in SharePoint. You upload your form templates, your XSNs that you've designed in InfoPath, and it basically presents them to you. It also lets you edit the forms and submit them just like you normally would. So it's essentially another tool that uses the same underlying format, and it allows you to display and edit your forms in SharePoint without using InfoPath Form Services. And the benefit to you is InfoPath Form Services on 365 has become slower recently. As of August of last year, Microsoft turned off the sandbox, so you can't run code in SharePoint Online InfoPath forms today, but you can take those forms and move them to FormsViewer, and they'll work just fine. FormsViewer has about 50 commands, QRules commands. So QRules is a code library that we provide. It's been a very popular plugin for InfoPath for many, many years. And QRules used to require sandbox code service, which Microsoft deprecated. So we have built FormsViewer, which allows you to run the same commands, the same 50 commands, without the sandbox code server. So hopefully that makes sense to you. In addition, there's new features. So we've made FormsViewer faster than the browser forms. We've also allowed you to submit forms externally and have those forms show up in SharePoint so you could reduce licensing costs. And it's a better experience because it's very easy to move forms up and down. It takes 1 or 2 seconds versus the long publish process of InfoPath. And we're really excited because we're actually also working on a form designer piece that will allow you to make modifications to your forms in the browser. We hope to have that out later this year. So without any further ado, let's quickly walk through here what the launch cycle is going to be for FormsViewer 2.1. So FormsViewer 2.1, if you're familiar with our web page, I'm just going to quickly jump to our web page here and show you our FormsViewer page. We do put the release notes, the release history on here. If you look at we're actually on the verge of launching a new web page too, but and this is the current existing one. If you go to history over here, you can see what we've done to date with FormsViewer, and it's been quite a long road already. We launched 3 or 4 releases last year. I guess it was 4 or 5 here, or maybe even 6. And you can see all these different releases with different commands. We're trying to do releases every quarter. Our first release was actually we did a beta release in 2014. So we've actually had quite a few releases, and we have quite a few customers using FormsViewer now. So you can take a look there. We'll be updating this with the 2.1 release notes after this webinar this morning. So our goal is to be feature complete on Monday. Jimmy and our other developer have about, I don't know, 20 hours left. Jimmy, what do you think? A few minor bugs left that we're trying to fix, and then we're going to test for 2 more weeks. We've been testing all the way through, but we're going to do a focused test pass on these new features, basically look at several hundreds of forms perhaps and scaling and so forth on our dev servers, and then we will push it out to live no later than March 27th. And so if you have the 365 version, it will just magically appear, and if you're wondering which version you're on right now, or you want to know when it magically appears, you can go to your FormsViewer page, your Manage Templates page, and let me just show you an example of that. So with FormsViewer, you've always got the app installed. You'll go to Site Content to look at where it is installed, and let me just show you where ours is. So if I go to Site Contents and scroll down here, I got a lot of stuff on our website page here. But if you click on the FormsViewer app, you'll see this is the main launch page, and at the very bottom there's the version information. So that's how you tell when we've upgraded to 2.1. You'll just see it there when you go into your FormsViewer app. Okay, so back to the improvements. What did we do differently now in 2.1? So 2.1 is the first release since the December release, and we've done quite a few things. We're highlighting just a few, about 10 improvements. And Jimmy, maybe we have you walk through these and describe these to the people.
Okay. So first of all, we fixed some issues relating to dates. There were a couple issues there. One was that the date pickers, under certain circumstances, would switch to an earlier day when you, the previous day when you selected a date. There was also a situation where if you displayed a date in a text box or a calculated value, it would show the day before the actual value. I think we've fixed those issues now. Hopefully everything should be working well there. We also found an issue with querying large documents over web services, such as DBXL. We had a situation where we couldn't load documents from DBXL if they contained large attachments, so that's fixed. Another thing is the commas in numbers. Some people prefer to see their numbers separated by commas every 3 digits. So that is now going to be supported if you selected that in the formatting settings.
And that's with or without the $, right?
Yes, we already had support for the $signs, but we can now have both now. An issue with, it says here large attachments, but actually we couldn't download attachments from Edge. So that should be working now. A couple of new QRules commands you're going to see later in this webinar. And we improved the date picker just a little bit. Previously it was really inconvenient to switch between large ranges of time. If you wanted to select something 2 years in the past, you had to click that arrow many times. Now you can select the year and month from a drop down, so it's a lot quicker to get to the date you want.
Beautiful.
Also, there were some font issues under certain situations. So at the top you just see some ordinary text. That's 10-point Calibri. The second one is a text box, and it should be 10-point Calibri, but the font size is not being interpreted correctly. Actually, the font itself is also wrong. I think it's showing an Arial there. So that should be fixed now. Also, there was a situation where if you applied conditional formatting to a text box or other controls, the size could wind up all wrong. So that's fixed now. You can see on the right everything's all uniform. CSS mods. This is a feature that's actually been around for a little while, but you can load custom CSS into your form if you want to style it a little differently from what InfoPath provides for you. It helps with providing mobile-friendly forms, and we've actually got a free download up on our downloads page in InfoPath Dev that has that functionality built in. And as of 2 days ago, the source code is up on GitHub. So if you have any interest in seeing how we made it and even contributing to the development effort, mosey on over there.
Here is the where you go to get the FormsViewer starter template that has that mobile-friendly CSS in it, dynamic rendering to allow you to, both for the desktop and for the handheld devices. And we did a webinar on this several weeks ago. I think it was early February. Mel Clemente did a webinar that you can look up on YouTube if you're interested in that. Let's see, Jimmy, do you have a link to the GitHub? Let's just quickly go over there. I don't know if I have it in the, maybe you can just paste the link into the, or just show people, I guess, when we switch to you with the demo, which we're almost there anyway. In fact, we're there. We're going to do the demo. So let me make you the presenter, and you can show people where that GitHub location is.
All right. Okay, so here we are in GitHub, and the URL is pretty simple. It's just github.com/qdabra/qfs, and we've got all the source code up here. So, okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we've got a couple of demos of the new commands that we've added to FormsViewer. It's only 3 commands this time around. Add GetValue, copy, and move. So let's talk about GetValue first. GetValue is a command that allows you to retrieve the value of a field in the form using an XPath. You pass an XPath into the command and it gives you the value. And you might be thinking, well, why do we need this command? You could just use a regular assignment rule with an XPath and be done with it. And that's absolutely true. This command is a bit of an advanced feature because it allows you to do things a little more dynamically. So what if you wanted to construct your XPath dynamically? Ordinary rules wouldn't allow you to do that. If you wanted to get your XPath itself from a field, which is what I'm going to show during this demo. And again, ordinary rules don't allow you to do that, and that's where this GetValue field comes into play. So the scenario that I'm going to demo this time around is some custom validation. So for this demo, I'll be using our trusty expense report form that we love to show in our webinars. And what I want to do today is add some validation to check certain fields when the user clicks the submit button, and then just show them a list of validation errors right near the submit button when those validation rules failed. So what I've done in order to do this is I've got this XML file that I'm going to include in the form as a secondary data source. And in this file, I've just included this section here. It's completely ad hoc, but it's got all the stuff that I need. So basically, what we've got here is an XPath to the field that I want to validate. I've got a type. So the three types I'm using are required. Basically, make sure it's non-blank. I've got email to validate that it's an email format, and a number to validate that it's a number. Valid is a field that's going to hold a true or a false depending on whether it passed the validation. A trigger is a field where I'm going to add a rule to carry out the validation. And message is the message that I want to show for each field if that validation failed. So go over to the form and look at what that looks like in the form. And we see we've got our form logic here and validation. And validation field is repeating. And it's got those 5 fields, attribute fields within it. And what you also notice is that I'm displaying this here as a repeating section, and I've got a formatting rule on it to hide this repeating section if it's valid. I want to hide that row of the validation, and I have a calculated value to show whatever message is in each respective row. So all the magic happens here on this trigger field. So when any value is set to this trigger field, it's going to run the rules on this trigger. And it's got just a couple of rules up here to reset itself so that it can be triggered multiple times. And the first rule here is where I'm using that new QRules command. I'm calling GetValue with XPath, and then the value of that XPath field in each respective row. So this is something I wouldn't be able to do with ordinary rules. GetValue allows me to dynamically get that value. And then the rest is just I have a separate rule for each type of validation I want to do. For the required validation, it's going to be valid if that field value is not blank. For numbers, I'm using this tricky little XPath formula, number result equals number result. This will be true if it's a valid number and false if it's not. And email, I'm using the match function, which applies a regular expression to the value. And this regular expression is basically a pattern for valid email addresses. Basically, a series of characters followed by an @ symbol, followed by a series of characters, a dot, and then more characters. Okay, so that's really all there is to the implementation. So let's let it rip. We've got the form in my browser here. I'll open it up.
And for those of you watching, this is a great example also of how to centralize logic. Jimmy's got form logic in the form, it's centralized, and it reduces the amount of rules in your form. Not only does it add the validation, but it also reduces the amount of rules. Jimmy?
Yeah. exactly. Okay, so I've got my form open now. Let's see what happens if I click the submit button straight away. So there it ran the validation, and it found that 4 of the fields were invalid: my name, ID number, email address, and manager. So let's specify a manager. That would be Patrick. My name is Jimmy Risch. And let's say I was trying to just be lazy. I didn't want to put in an email address. Hit submit, and there it's detecting that it's not a valid email address because I'm using that pattern matching. So I'll use my right email address and an ID number. And so let's switch over to the expense. So let's have taxi to airport. That'd be $30. Lunch at airport. And I'm going to intentionally put in a bogus value. Okay, so we see the total here is NAN, which is certainly not a valid total. So if I click submit here, it detects that the value is not valid, and it's showing that validation error. So now I've got the correct value, hit submit, and it's submitted. So that is a nice use of the GetValue command. Anytime you want to dynamically query fields based on constructed XPaths or previously prepared XPaths, you can use that. So I've got one more little demo inside this form to show off the move command. So what the move command does is it takes a piece of XML in your form and just moves it somewhere else inside the form. So the scenario I've come up with here is that we have this repeating group. Nope, not here. Okay, so we've got a repeating group of the expense items, and let's say that if I wanted to reject an item, well, we could just mark a field in it, say it's rejected, and do some filtering in the form to, hide or show it appropriately. But let's say I just wanted to move it to a completely different part of the data source and sort of organize it that way. Well, the move command allows me to do this. So it's pretty straightforward. So all this button does is use the one command. So we've got move. The source path is the path to that item group plus the number, the row number in brackets, and I'm determining the row number using count preceding sibling. And most of you have probably seen this technique. And the destination path is just the path to that rejected items portion of the form. And for the location, I want to add it as the last child of that rejected items group. So that's all it takes to make use of the move command. So let me open this up, and so supposing that I am now a manager opening up this form, and in a real life situation, you of course have some permissions to determine that I was in fact the manager, but this is for demonstration purposes. So let's say I didn't think lunch at the airport counted as valid expense. First, I would select that row, click reject, and we see it's now been removed from this table and added to this one down here, and I can add a rejection reason. Let's say I changed my mind and said, oh, check the policy, and lunches actually are covered. So let's put it back. So I've got an accept accept button that uses the move command to move it back to the original location. So yeah, move is useful anytime you want to move stuff around like that. I get a lot of use out of it, so it's going to be handy having it available in FormsViewer now. We've also got a copy command, which is very similar. The only difference is that instead of moving it, instead of moving the XML, it leaves the original XML where it was and creates a copy in the destination location. So one situation where that could be useful is suppose you wanted to load some previously submitted document and copy in just a portion of that data into a new document that you're filling out. You could use a variety of techniques using insert or XSLT, but with the copy command, all you have to do is run one command and you're done. So very handy.
That's great. And Jimmy, does the target and the destination, sorry, does the source and the target for that copy command, they have to be the same schema, right?
Yes. So it just moves it wholesale, so they have to have the same XML structure, but of course you can copy across data sources if they use the same structure.
Oh, that sounds great. So the namespace is not an issue. Just the structure.
Well, namespaces as well would have to match. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Got it. Well, this is a wonderful demo. This is the first time I've seen this. I'm sure other people are wondering just how Jimmy came up with this. I mean, I don't know, you spent an hour or so doing this, Jimmy? I was kind of shocked that you got this great demo working with the two commands there. Very, very impressive, especially that logic, the validation stuff. One of the limitations in FormsViewer today is that we don't do a lot of the validation, and this is one technique then for adding it. I'm really glad to see that. Let's see, so let's go back to the slides here. I'm just going to make myself presenter. If you've got questions, please let us know, and there's a question area in the GoToWebinar browser that you should be able to see. Let's make sure I've got the right screen up here. So we do want to hear from you now. We've got, well, before we do that, let's show you this gratuitous purple picture here with the lots of leverage here. I guess, I don't know why I thought of that, but I wanted to, you know, look at this really ancient tree here with all of these posts in it. And the idea here was that we wanted to show you how to leverage FormsViewer and this data-driven design that Jimmy just demoed. So I guess we've already done that. If you want to install FormsViewer, it's really simple. You just go up to InfoPath.dev, you get the app file, and you add it to your central admin for the site. You have to be a central admin to add it to your online site collection. And then any site collection admin can use it on that site or underneath those sites. Yeah, so let's ask you what you have in store for us in terms of questions. We're here to answer questions. That's the primary purpose of this webinar this morning, the open door. Does anyone have any questions? And if not, I'm glad we did have something to prepare for you, to show you. I want to thank everyone for joining us. See some familiar faces there, and I know that many of you already are using FormsViewer, and we do have a few more days left, so if there's something that you didn't see that you absolutely wanted us to consider, please do let us know now or send us an email. We're pretty much at the end of the features, but and we've been talking to most of you, I think, throughout this process. Looks like we have one question, and thank you, Misty. So your question is the formatting for long date available now? Jimmy, do you know what the answer is to that?
No, date formatting is still something we need to add in the future, although there are ways to manually put together the dates using XPath if that's something you need.
Could you use format string?
No, that's not currently supported for dates.
Okay. Thank you, Misty, for that question. We will take a look at this again, and but hopefully you've got a workaround there. Thanks for the second comment, too. Any other questions for us? We look forward to publishing the new version to the cloud. We are also working on activating an East Coast data center. We haven't seen a lot of latency issues in the U.S. with the one data center that we have running FormsViewer backend. That's in California now. But we do plan to create a what do you call a fail-safe or a failover to prevent. I think there's an AWS outage with S3 on Tuesday of this week, and it affected 150,000 sites or something. We want to make sure that if there is an Azure outage in California that, first of all, you're not affected, but we also wanted to, it would fail over to the East Coast in that case. We also wanted to improve performance for those of you running closer to the East Coast or on the East Coast, and so we'll be rolling that out as well. It will be seamless. You won't see anything different. It'll just hopefully get a little faster on open. And you saw the performance Jimmy's got from Kyoto there. He's in Kyoto, Japan, opening a form, and we're running from the California data center. So it's really not very slow, even from Japan. We are typically, advising people that the form opens should be less than 5 seconds, ideally less than 2 or 3 seconds. If you've got a lot of data connections on load, it can take a little bit longer, but just the best practice is to keep those form opens relatively quick. Unlike InfoPath Form Services, FormsViewer does not have any postbacks, as you see Jimmy up and entering the information and the calculations happening, and there's no sending data to the server. This is one of the big benefits of FormsViewer is the faster responsiveness when you're filling out the form. And then, of course, when you're submitting the form, you saw how fast that was. So we're really dedicated to making this a really very, very fast and snappy app. And I think we've already done that, but we're continuing to make it even better for you. If you have any suggestions or advice, please let us know. We got a very short 3-question survey at the end here, and then we'll send you the sample that Jimmy did in an hour or so. It'll also be available for free download from our website later in the day. And with that, I don't think we have any other questions. Last chance, if you've got a question now, please post it quickly. Otherwise, I want to wish everyone a happy day. We are looking at doing a new webinar next week on locking forms to ensure edit fidelity. This is, I think, Mark, you're here. Yeah, it's based on inspiration from talking to you yesterday. So typically in these webinars we try to I guess address one of the concerns that we hear among our customers. And I was talking to Mark yesterday about locking forms, and we'll show you a technique, of course, in FormsViewer next week, but it works just fine in InfoPath as well. We'll show you this technique of how to lock forms using a generic XML template part. So with that, I think we're done. Hope you all have a great day, and it's been a pleasure presenting. Jimmy, way to go. Awesome job in the demos. Hope you have a good night there in Kyoto.
Thank you, everybody.